Tem um momento na carreira que precisamos dar um passo além. É hora de fazer uma pós-graduação. Só que muitas vezes o custo pesa no bolso, inviabilizando tudo. Com a pós-graduação do Senac, você não tem esse problema. Cursos com até 50% de desconto e muito mais tempo para pagar. TCC opcional, modelo flexível com aulas presenciais e online e alguns cursos com apenas 12 meses de duração. Não tem mais desculpa, hein? Saiba mais em sp.senac.br/pós-graduação.
How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, S-H-O-W, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
Hello, America. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here nationwide. The phone number, 877-973-7425. It is an open line Friday, and I am happy to have you with me. We have breaking news we must deal with out of the gate. Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene has filed a motion to oust the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, because of the House spending resolution that passed with majority Democratic support last night. There is the old Hastert rule that was developed by pedophile Denny Hastert, that the Republicans would not move forward with a piece of legislation unless it had majority Republican support. Again, it was conjured up by the pedophile, Denny Hastert, who had been Speaker of the House for some time. And, well, the Speaker of the House last night moved the compromise package, and the conservatives didn't want it. I've got good friends of mine in Congress who are deeply opposed to it, and I share their view on this spending package. It didn't need to pass. Had they not passed it and stuck to what they had, they would have had reductions in spending forced upon them by the prior deal. But there's a problem, and that is Republicans have a 2 to 3 seat majority of the House of Representatives. For my friends who are conservatives in the House, I feel your pain on this. It's ridiculous we keep passing these spending packages, but win elections with good candidates. The populists and the conservatives rallied in 2022 and nominated a bunch of people in a bunch of districts who couldn't win general elections against Democrats. So you had a 5-seat majority. You ousted Kevin McCarthy, so he quit. Ken Buck's too frustrated to stay, so he's gone. You got another one, Bill Johnson or whatever, who left to be a college president. You ousted George Santos. Good for you on that one. But you don't have a significant majority. Conservatives are outnumbered by moderate Republicans. And the moderate Republicans were willing to go along with conservatives to do spending cuts earlier this year until Matt Gaetz decided to oust the Speaker of the House. And after that, the moderate Republicans said, a pox on all your houses, we're done. You people aren't serious. So Matt Gaetz and the populists ousting Speaker McCarthy burned bridges with the moderates who had agreed with conservatives to make major cuts in government. Now the populists, led by Marjorie Taylor Greene, wants to oust this speaker. Now, for perspective, Mike Johnson, the current Speaker of the House, is the first Bible-believing, evangelical, pro-life movement conservative to be Speaker of the House, period. Don't give me Newt Gingrich. Newt Gingrich actually was more moderate than people like to believe. In fact, when conservatives were angsty about Newt Gingrich, it was the moderates who saved him. And now, ironically, the populists have put Mike Johnson in this position where the Democrats and moderate Republicans will save him. So you have the first evangelical, Bible-believing, pro-life, socially conservative, movement conservative Speaker of the House of Representatives. And you're going to make him beholden to the Democrats and moderates by trying to oust him, and he's not going to get ousted. Unlike McCarthy, the votes are there to save this Speaker of the House. because the Democrats have come forward and said, we're done. We're tired of the clown show. We got a few months until the election. And so instead of trying to win elections, and by the way, you should note that the reason Republicans don't have a significant majority is because of people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who with Donald Trump and others sided with a bunch of populist Republicans who weren't good fits for their districts. And they won primaries, but they couldn't win general elections. You know, the goal is not to win a primary, it's to win a general election. And what's so funny is that in a number of cases, they ousted incumbent Republicans who had been good fits for the district, who the base liked until Donald Trump decided he was mad at them. You got to find candidates who can win the general election, not candidates who can win the primary. So for my friends in the House of Representatives who are strong conservatives, my buddy Chip Roy's been railing against the spending package, and everything he said, he's absolutely right about. And in fact, he called out social conservative groups the other night on the floor of the House who didn't have his back, who were willing to give a pass on this. And he's right. They didn't fight. But I would submit the reason they didn't fight is because in a 2-seat House majority where the conservatives are the minority, the vast minority, conservatives aren't going to get much of what they want. And they're really not going to get much of what they wanted when the populists who aren't conservative but sound like it keep ousting speakers of the House who had been doing their best to give conservatives some of what they wanted. It really is mind-boggling to me now that you have Mike Johnson really is the first movement conservative evangelical pro-life Speaker of the House. When he was in the Louisiana legislature, he pushed for the marriage reform legislation that got rid of no-fault divorce in Louisiana. He pushed for pro-life legislation. He pushed for fetal heartbeat bans. He was a social conservative. He's the first real, authentic social conservative of that caliber to be Speaker of the House. And the populists who claim to be conservatives, they want to oust him. They've finally got one of their own, and they're not happy. And they're not happy because he's not giving them their way. But he's not giving them their way because it's a matter of votes. They don't have the votes. And if you're frustrated by the situation in the House of Representatives, as I am, you should be finding good conservative candidates to run for the House of Representatives who can actually win general elections so that they can go to Congress and fight for conservative reform instead of the clown show candidates that got nominated in 2022 that the Democrats then propped up and they lost general elections to Democrats. What are we doing here? Snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. And you know what's so funny here is that the Democrats, moderate Republicans, they're going to prop up Speaker Johnson. By the way, he's not their candidate. He's too conservative for him. They just don't want to go through this again. So then what's going to happen is you're going to have conservatives. Well, he's not our speaker. He's the Democrat speaker. So you're going to put the Democrats in charge of the House? You know, in the worst case scenario here, Mike Johnson says, well, screw this, I quit if they oust him. And that puts the Democrats one seat closer to Hakeem Jeffries being Speaker of the House. Before we even get to the election, the Democrats could sit in the Speaker's chair, and the Democrats in the Senate and the Democrats in the House could push all sorts of major Democratic legislation before we even get to the election because of Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's handing the House to the Democrats. Now, you have to understand that for people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, already fundraising on this, by the way, it doesn't matter if you're in the majority, the minority in the House, because you don't actually want to get anything done. You just want to fundraise. You want to go on TV. You want to raise a lot of money. You don't have an agenda. The wild difference between the Marjorie Taylor Greenes of the world and the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortezes of the world is that AOC recognizes she has to be in the majority to get something done that she wants done. She has a progressive agenda she wants passed. And so she was willing to accommodate people that she viewed as more moderate than her, like, of all people, Nancy Pelosi, who AOC thinks is to the right of the Democrats, which is bizarre to me because Pelosi's so left. But she was willing to hold her nose and prop up Nancy Pelosi and even Joe Biden in the White House because she needs them so that she can be in the majority. But Marjorie Taylor Greene doesn't have to be in the majority because she will send people a fundraising note saying, send me money. I decided to oust the speaker, and they will write her a check. That's God's honest truth here. And then you have those who confuse tactics and strategy. This is, I got a bone to pick with a lot of the conservative movement right now, and they are confusing strategy and tactics. They're doing a series of tactics that they think is a strategy. They have no overarching strategy. The strategy is here's the end game. What's the big vision to accomplish it? And then the tactics are the series of tools you deploy to accomplish your strategy to get to your end game. If you think about it as a paragraph, the strategy is the paragraph and the tactics are the sentences. And conservatives in the conservative movement somehow have confused tactics and said these tactics, they're our strategy. Well, you're moving back and forth, you're zigzagging, you don't have some overall goal that you want to accomplish. You want to accomplish conservative reforms? Well, you need buy-in from moderates in the House of Representatives. And to get buy-in from the moderates in the House of Representatives to accomplish your goals, and remember, those moderate Republicans were willing to do massive cuts in government with conservatives until Matt Gaetz blew it all up with his move to House Speaker McCarthy. So now there's no trust. You got to rebuild trust with the moderates. You got to rebuild trust with the moderates. Ousting another speaker doesn't rebuild that trust. The moderates showed you they were willing to make some cuts. They're concerned about the fiscal cliff. Instead, what you're going to do now, thanks to Marjorie Taylor Greene, is have the moderate Republicans ally with the Democrats to save the Speaker of the House, the one conservative in this mix. And who is the conservative speaker now going to be beholden to? Not the conservatives and the populists who want to get government cut. He's going to be beholden to the people who are fine growing government. Way to go, everyone. Well done. What a clown show. I don't blame my friend Ken Buck for wanting to wash his hands of it and be done with it. The reality, the God's honest truth, is you have a 2-3 seat Senate or House majority, you can't get anything done. The spending package grew government, and that's the status quo. The status quo is that these spending packages, every time you pass a continuing resolution, it incrementally increases the size and scope of government. They're bad. They should get back to budgeting. But they blew that up by ousting McCarthy as well. So you're not going to get anything you want. And I feel real bad for my authentically conservative friends in the House of Representatives who are deeply concerned with the size and scope of federal spending, because I am deeply concerned with the size and scope of federal spending. We're headed off a fiscal cliff. But when you burn bridges with your colleagues in the Republican conference by continually agitating to House speakers, you're not willing to compromise. You're willing to vilify your fellow Republicans and accuse them of being out to destroy the country. You don't have earned goodwill with them. I was talking to a Republican former state legislator in Georgia the other night. One of the most conservative members in the House of Representatives to have ever existed in the Georgia House, and yet he was remarkably successful in getting things done, even though the Speaker of the House at the time hated his guts. He said what people don't understand at this point is that you got to build relationships, and he befriended so many members of the state house. When he voted against their legislation, they knew it wasn't personal. They knew it was on principle. And when he wanted to advance legislation they knew he cared about, they were friends with him, and if it didn't offend their sensibilities, they were willing to advance conservative legislation because he was willing to build bridges and recognize you can't vilify everyone you disagree with. You have to build bridges and build friendships so that when the time comes for you to oppose each other, they don't take it personally. Right now, all the Republicans in the House hate all the Republicans in the House. They couldn't even show up at a retreat for each other. And all this does is engender more ill will on the Republican side and keeps the Republicans from being able to actually get on board a plan that they were all on board with to begin with to cut government spending. Again, you cannot emphasize this enough. The moderate Republicans were willing to cut spending. They were willing to join a conservative plan to reduce the size and scope of the federal government, and then Matt Gaetz blew it all up by ousting Speaker McCarthy. And now, ever since, we've had a series of threats leading to today, Marjorie Taylor Greene trying to oust this Speaker of the House. The votes aren't actually there for it this time because the Democrats are going to stand with the guy to keep him in place because they're tired of the clown show too. And you know what's going to happen? More bad will. more ill will, more bad feelings, more bad thoughts, and more refusal to get back to where the Republicans had been at the beginning with a plan to cut government spending, because nobody trusts the clowns who keep trying to oust the speakers. Snatching defeat from the jaws of victory, confusing tactics for strategy. It's what they do best. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. Phone number 877-973-7425. It's an open line Friday. Y'all, don't mistake my frustrations on this. I think that the spending package is crap. But I also recognize in a two-seat majority in the House of Representatives, you're not going to get spending cuts because conservatives are not only in the minority, they continue to nominate, along with the populists, people who aren't winning general elections. Win elections. You want to cut the size and scope of government? Win elections. Make a conservative case to the voters. Stop nominating idiots who can't get through general elections. I mean, we keep doing this to ourselves on our side. We keep snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. You nominate bad candidates in primaries who can't win general elections. There's your problem. I'm frustrated. I share the frustrations of friends of mine like Chip Roy with what we're doing in the House of Representatives, but I'm also mindful of the fact we got a two-seat majority. You're not going to shut the government down. You know what's going to happen when you and I try to shut the government down? I love government shutdowns. We should keep it shut down, but you got the moderates and the Democrats are going to align together. They've got 218 votes, and they will not only keep it open, they're going to grow it. So the best you can do is build some common ground with the moderates and try to keep them from growing it too much and maybe find some ways to cut. They showed you they were willing to cut. They showed you they were willing to cut. And then Matt Gaetz blew it all up with ousting McCarthy, and it's been a clown show ever since. It's so frustrating. We keep snatching defeat from the jaws of victory on our side. And by our side, I mean the conservatives, not even the Republicans. We keep snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. And the tragic thing here is that we're letting the populists do it. Marjorie Taylor Greene's not a conservative. She's a populist. And the populists are the ones who more often than not, they're the ones who embrace the tactics instead of strategy. That they've got if it feels good, do it right now, no impulse control mentality. And they're ruining it for all of us. It's so deeply frustrating. So deeply frustrating. And government's going to keep growing as a result of it because we can't win elections with the clown nominees that have been put up in these races. You know, Americans for Prosperity is out trying to help conservatives win around the country and being creative and innovative in how they do it. Like they just bought Bidenomics.com as a great website to show people how bad Biden's economic policies are. It's actually a great website to find out just how bad Biden's policies are. Really eye-opening in his words versus his deeds. You can go see it at Bidenomics.com. But I got to put in a plug here for Americans for Prosperity because in Georgia and South Carolina in the last couple of days, they've helped get huge wins for school choice in those states. They've knocked on doors in districts where legislators were wobbly on school choice. They've educated voters. They mobilized voters to make phone calls to their wobbly legislators to get them standing on firm ground. They really, really played a significant role in getting school choice passed in Georgia and South Carolina. And around the country, they've been doing this. They're in 37 states fully organized now. Go to americansforprosperity.org/Eric today. americansforprosperity.org/Eric. Sign up today with Americans for Prosperity. Be part of a great movement to grow conservatism across the country. Hello and welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the nation. The phone number 877-973-7425 should you wish to be on the program. Now I can get to the news I was going to start the show with now that we've dispatched the breaking news about Marjorie Taylor Greene trying to oust the Speaker of the House. And that is the due process situation in New York. I think it is a very, very bad thing that New York insists Donald Trump file a bond in order to appeal. I think it's unconstitutional, actually. I also think it can help Donald Trump get elected president of the United States. Before we get into the politics of it, let me just explain this position to you from me. Let me just read you from the Associated Press. This isn't my opinion. This is the fact from the Associated Press. An Associated Press analysis of nearly 70 years of similar cases showed Trump's case stands apart. It's the only big business found that was threatened with a shutdown without a showing of obvious victims and major losses. The background of this case in New York is that the Attorney General in New York claimed that Donald Trump overinflated the value of his properties in order to get loans from banks. The problem here is the banks, these were arm's length transactions, and they themselves could investigate had they wanted to, and in most cases did investigate, disagreed with Trump's statement of the value of his assets, and negotiated down the size of the loan. And a couple, they did not. And the people who say, well, there was a victim here, the shareholders of the banks are like, their victims are abstract. And in this sort of law, you can't have abstract victims. You've got to show a real victim. And the state of New York never showed a real victim. Your hypothetical abstract victim that, well, the shareholders could have possibly made some more value or saved some money or something. Donald Trump paid back all the loans with interest. He didn't default. There's no victim here. Your victim is an abstract victim and a hypothetical victim, not an actual victim. The state never showed one, and they didn't have to because it was a civil, not a criminal suit. But this is a bizarre case. It actually is. And while I may not care for the guy, this is an injustice from the state of New York that is clearly in a fishing expedition. Again, this isn't my opinion. This is the Associated Press that reviewed 70 years of similar cases and never found a single situation where a business was threatened with a shutdown without an obvious victim or major losses, except for Donald Trump's. And to appeal this, he's supposed to file a bond. And what's hilarious here is that progressives are all about his necessity to file this multi-million dollar, multi-$100 million bond. And these are the people who want to get rid of cash bail because they don't think poor people should have to put up cash bail to get out of jail. And they're laughing at Trump not being able to come up with the money. I happen to have some insider knowledge here because I am very familiar with the internal operations of one of the companies that Trump reached out to. And I was explicitly told the company wouldn't work with Trump because of... That was a sneeze. I was specifically told by someone involved in the conversations that they would not help Donald Trump because of his politics. There are only a handful, less than 5 companies in the world that can put up the bond and have insurance tied to a $450 some odd million bond that Donald Trump would have to post. It makes it virtually impossible to get because you have to have the bond, you have to have an insurance company being able to back the bond, and it becomes very, very hard. It's pretty much impossible at that amount of money. It's also one of the largest charges or claims against any company in any sort of similar lawsuit. It really is bizarre, particularly when there are no victims and there are no losses and all the money was paid back with interest. New York, I think, is violating Donald Trump's constitutional due process right to be able to appeal by impeding him by requiring a cash bond. And so now they want to seize his property. Frank Luntz is the famed pollster, focus group expert, not a fan of Donald Trump. He's not a fan of Donald Trump. He's considered a Republican, not a fan of Donald Trump's. He was on CNN talking about this. Listen.
All right, Frank, the politics of this. Folks in the Biden campaign are already starting to refer to Donald Trump as broke Don, which is interesting. And then there is the possibility that the New York Attorney General, Letitia James, would have to start or would start seizing assets, maybe even buildings. How do you think that would play?
I want you to remember this moment. And don't forget it. If the New York Attorney General starts to take his homes away, starts to seize his assets, it's all going to be on camera. Pundits are going to sit there and scream about this. This man cannot be elected. You're going to create the greatest victimhood of 2024, and you're going to elect Donald Trump. If they take his stuff, he's going to say that this is proof that the federal government and the establishment and the swamp in Washington and all the politicians across the country and the attorneys generals and all of this, that this is a conspiracy to deny him the presidency. He's going to go up in the polls just like he went up every single time they indicted him. The indictment, let's not talk about whether it's justified or not, but it will prove the things that he's saying on the campaign trail, and he will go up, and it may just elect him president. Do not forget that. And I say this to the Attorney General right now. If you play politics on this, this is what the secretaries of state did in Colorado and what they did in, I believe it was Maine. His numbers went up in both states. I don't understand. I'm almost speechless in how pathetic the opposition to Trump has been and how completely misguided. And this is a perfect example of it.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong. Part of me wonders if Donald Trump wants them to start taking his properties. Now, there are a lot of people said, oh, they'll take Mar-a-Lago from him. Florida has such a big homestead exemption in homestead state. It's going to be very difficult for New York to take Mar-a-Lago from Donald Trump without a fight in Florida in favorable courts for Trump. But the New York properties and the golf courses and all up there, they might be able to do it. It's going to make Donald Trump look even more persecuted as you know, there is this undercurrent sentiment in non-white communities about our double standards of justice and the elite getting away with things. And you suddenly make Donald Trump a very sympathetic figure to them, that the elite they hate also hate Donald Trump and they're persecuting him like them. This helps Donald Trump. That the left can't seem to understand that this helps Donald Trump is bizarre to me. And you could hear the just incredulity in Frank Luntz's voice. Like, do they not understand they're getting Donald Trump elected by doing this sort of stuff? Luntz does not want Trump elected. And he stands back as a disinterested, at this point, outside observer of the process, thinking you people are going to get this guy elected. Actually, I don't know that I shouldn't say Frank doesn't want him elected. I don't think Frank likes Trump at all. But he recognizes where the Senate, and it actually is really funny, the Democrats are helping Donald Trump so much. Now, there's a problem. Donald Trump is undermining himself in this. This is Donald Trump's tweet. In fact, a prominent member of the news media read my morning piece on how I think it's a constitutional violation to force Donald Trump to post this bond to file an appeal. And he said, I completely agree. Your post was well-reasoned. It was thoughtful. It was logical. But Donald Trump just sabotaged your point. This is what Donald Trump posted online this morning. Through hard work, talent, and luck, I currently have almost $500 million in cash, a substantial amount of which I intend to use in my campaign for president. The often overlooked political hack judge on the rigged and corrupt AG case, where I have done nothing wrong, knew this, wanted to take it away from me, and that's where and why he came up with the shocking number, which, coupled with his crazy interest demand, is approximately $454 million. Dude, your lawyers just told a court under oath that you're unable to secure the bond to appeal the judgment because of the finances and insurance involved. Your lawyers under oath just told a court of law that you can't get a bond, and now you're on True Social telling people you have $500 million in cash and intend to use a substantial amount of it for your campaign for president. You know what you can do under the law in New York? In lieu of being able to provide a bond, you can post the cash in a trustee account. Donald Trump just undermined his entire claim to not be able to get a bond. It honestly is one of the wildest things I've seen, self-sabotage there. And part of me thinks that this is some level of Donald Trump thinking that let them seize my properties in New York. I've moved to Florida. Let them seize it all. It's going to make me president of the United States. It really is just, it's wild. Now, there are some people saying, well, what about the SPAC? So Donald Trump he's going to take True Social and his assets online or on the stock market, going to be publicly traded. DJT is going to be the stock symbol, his initials. And he stands to reap billion some odd dollars with the IPO on this stock. But there's a problem. Under securities and exchange laws, when you do an IPO, the initial investors can't cash out for about 6 months unless they get a waiver. And if they get a waiver, they can only cash out 1% at a time, 1% a month. So he's not going to have access to any sort of real assets under this IPO for some time soon before he can cash stuff out. It's going to take at least 6 months. He needs the money ASAP. His lawyers go to court. They say, listen, we need a waiver from this rule because given the unique situation, $454 million, there are only about 3 companies that can provide the bond, and all of them are running into insurance problems, making it impossible for them to give us the bond. So we can't post a bond that you say we need to appeal because we can't get that bond. Therefore, our due process rights are being violated, and they're absolutely right on that. Until this morning, as the sun rose, Donald Trump went on True Social and told everyone he had $500 million in cash and intended to use it to run for president. Well, you can't use it to run for president if you want to appeal because you can't get a bond, but you just said publicly you have the money that could be used to put in a trust account to cover the cost of the bond to be able to appeal. Oh my gosh, I can't believe he did it. I can't. I feel bad for the lawyers after making that argument under oath that he didn't have the money out of pocket, and now he says he does. But the whole reason that he's doing this, by the way, is because the fundraising numbers are out, and Joe Biden has a massive fundraising advantage on Donald Trump. Massive fundraising advantage on Donald Trump. In fact, the Democrats have been baiting Donald Trump into bragging about his wealth, knowing it would undermine him in this court appeal, and he fell for it. He fell for it. And now if he's got $500 million, he's going to have to use it if he wants to appeal, or he can let them take all of his properties, including Trump Tower in New York, where he and his wife have a house, have a condo. Are y'all ready for 2025? Because I sure think I am. Now, I got to tell you about Old Glory Bank. They've got a banking bill of rights that you can go check out at oldglorybank.com. They're not going to give your information to the federal government. They're not going to prohibit you from transactions you wish to do. They're not going to monitor your transactions and prevent you from doing business with companies you want to do business with. And they're not going to cancel your account because of who you are and who you do business with and what your politics are, as some banks have started doing in this country. This debanking trend from the left is getting out of hand. You can go read their banking bill of rights at oldglorybank.com. Also, I have an account with them, and I don't get fees taken out by my bank, oldglorybank.com, because they don't have fees for their checking and their savings account. I don't have a premier checking account, which they're just about to bring online, and I suspect there will be fees with that one. But for the basic checking and the basic savings that I've got, y'all, I can deposit cash at retail locations around the country, and it gets credited into my account. I've done this with my kids. The kids, I wanted bank accounts with Old Glory Bank for them because they don't have fees. They are a real bank. They're a regular bank. They're good people, and they share your values, too. Group of conservatives set up Old Glory Bank because they did not want woke banks. They were tired of the debanking trends. You should do business with Old Glory Bank. Y'all, seriously, they've got great online apps, online bill pay. They've got their online budgeting tools are fantastic. It's a great bank, and they are good people. These are the sorts of businesses you want to succeed. I'm a customer. I was before they started ads. I'm not a customer because of the ads. I beg them to advertise because I want to promote this bank. I love them. OldGloryBank.com is the bank. OldGloryBank.com. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Terms and conditions apply. Hello and welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number, 877-973-7425. It's Open Line Friday. Be patient with me because I ran long in the last segment, so I can't take your calls now because we don't have a lot of time. This hour of the program brought to you by First Liberty Building and Loan. FirstLibertyGA.com is their website. If you're buying a building, building a building, you need $250,000 or more, reach out to them, FirstLibertyGA.com. Tell them I sent you. There was a viral moment that happened a week or so ago. in the South Carolina state legislature. You might have by now, because it went really viral online. This member of the House there, Adam Morgan, he's from the upstate, the Greenville, South Carolina area where I'm on WORD, had this exchange with a Democrat in the House.
The pressure in here in Columbia is for me to not even vote red on the board. Y'all might not know this. A dark money entity that was created on Tuesday, the day after we voted for this, I went home and a attack piece went out in my whole district about the fact that I voted for this. I get that the people in Columbia, that the lobby wants me to either not vote or to vote green on this, but my constituents want me to vote red, and they want their tax money spent on core government functions, on their roads, on their schools. That's what they want their money spent on. So, they don't want us in here trying to play this government planning thing where we in our bureaus can figure out where the job should be, who should be employed, how much money should be allocated where in the private sector. It never works. It's socialism. It's never worked anywhere before. So what are we doing trying to do it here?
But would you consider the fact that South Carolina's track record on bringing major projects into this state has a winning record, and therefore, again, commerce should be listened to rather than those people back in your district that may not have ever brokered a deal, may not understand what it means to being a project, may not understand economic incentives. So what you're suggesting is we should listen to the people back home in your district rather than the people at Commerce that have been successful at bringing these mega deals to South Carolina.
Mr. Rutherford, I don't think that you could have espoused a philosophy that disagrees more fundamentally than me. I completely disagree with you, and I think that you believe what you just said. But no, I 100% am going to listen to the people back home who I represent in this House. And you should listen to the 40,000 people in your area and not the bureaucrats at Commerce, and not the lobbyists, and not the multi-billion-dollar international corporations. You should listen to your constituents like I am. So yes.
It's great. I mean, literally, you have this Democrat up saying, you mean you really think you should listen to your voters instead of the bureaucrats of the Commerce Department? And Adam Morgan's like, yes, I think I should listen to the people who elected me, not the bureaucrats and the lobbyists. It exploded online. Well, he happens to be a listener from WORD in Greenville, South Carolina, at the bottom of the next hour, 1:30 Eastern. If you're listening live, Adam Morgan is going to join me to talk about this moment that went viral across the internet last week during this conversation on the floor of the House in South Carolina.